Thank you for attending this meeting of the Harbour Committee on Wednesday, the 10th of September, 2025. This meeting is being recorded, and I'll just first of all go through the safety announcements. We don't have any planned fire drills or anything this afternoon, but in the event of the fire alarm going off or a suspected fire, we will head out through the main doors of the council chamber and left down the stairway out into the main car park. Thank you. We'll also we'll go straight onto the agenda, and apologies and substitutions. We've got no substitutions, have we? But we have apologies from Councillor Garrett, and also we have a vacancy because of the resignation of Councillor McLean. Oh, and sorry, the reason I'm sat here as the vice chair is because Councillor Jones Evans is away today, so wasn't able to chair the meeting. Thank you. Second on the agenda is the minutes, and to confirm the minutes as a true record of the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June. I'm not sure. I know that me, Carl, and I think Ray were here. Would anyone like to propose and second those meetings? Those minutes, sorry. That's Councillor Love for sign those meetings. Those minutes, sorry. Thank you. Just to mention, I did mention to my colleagues here that I often have to leave this meeting a little bit early because I've got commitments with children in the afternoon. So if we're running any later than about 3:05, I might have to just send a text message to someone to say that they need to help me out. But we'll see how we get on. So, and number 3 is any declarations of interest. Thank you.
I sit on Council Harbour Commission. That's an
got that on your register of interest. If you have it on your register of interest, you don't need to update the meeting, but if it's not, then I might suggest update it. But I'll know just register it anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you. And public question time. We don't have any members of the public here today, and I don't believe we've got any questions at all, have we? So so we'll move straight on to number 5, which is the finance reports, which are, I think, Mr. Minns will be taking those. Thank you, Alex.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. They are quite straightforward if you've had a chance to look at them in advance. We are nearly 6 months through the year, but these are the figures as of the end of July. So they're a little bit outdated, but it's a similar pattern as we continue anyway. But looking at Newport in the first instance, these are both statutory items of this committee. There are some very, very small variances to the budget. So if you look at the Newport Harbour expenditure budget, that is about £3,000 underspent. Yes, apologies, it's quite small print. I've had to put my glasses on. So about £3,000 underspent on expenditure, and that's largely due to savings on premises. And income, there is absolutely almost on target in terms of budget. We're on £95,000 to the such a small amount. Yeah, so we're just slightly under budget by £95,000. So in terms of where Newport sits at the minute, it is £3,000 in the good. So it's performing very well to budget. I am aware from talking to Lawrence, who sits next to me, that they have done some work on trying to realign the budgets to try to make them more accurate in the last couple of months. So that's probably why you're looking at something that's very close to where the budget figure actually is. But it's a good sign. It's doing well this early in the year. So I'm relatively pleased with that, but quite happy to take any questions anybody might have.
Councillor Luciani.
Just to be helpful to those that can't see anything, maybe when it's something small as this, can we put it on the screen?
Yeah, of course.
In future.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I put my glasses on. I'll try and tell you. All I will say is, as a general point, there is nothing too significant here. It's all relatively small changes. I could say, yeah, you wouldn't know, would you? It is. We can look to do that next time, can't we? Would you like me to move on to Ventnor?
If I can just say just on Newport, if you don't mind, I guess that this has been helped by the old bus museum building coming back into use and receiving income from that. I mean, I popped into there while the car show was on the other day. They're well underway with building stuff in there. It's great to see it. So and I think every time an empty building comes back into use, obviously it helps the council's finance. Well, the harbour finances. Sorry, don't want to blur those two, do we? But it obviously it just helps the security and the vibrancy of the whole area, doesn't it? Once you've got buildings in use.
I mean, most of the buildings are in use. The problems that we get is when we lose a tenant, we don't want the gap to be too great, and we need to make sure that the property team are marketing it properly and on it, because obviously if our projections are based on most of the buildings being full, and I think that's one of our biggest buildings, and where it was empty for 6-7 months, that caused us quite a lot. A year. That's caused us a lot of problems last year because it's our biggest income generating area in terms of leases for the harbour. So we need to be on to that when there is any vacancies or is any terminations of any concessions. But at the minute, well, as you suggested, it's looking quite favourable.
Any other questions about Newport? If we can move on to Ventnor.
Ventnor, as you know, is an even simpler position. I mean, it is literally on target. The net position is a £70 differential, which is really negligible. Obviously, most of the cost is with contracted services because members will be aware it is actually contracted out to the Blakes, who do all the seaweed removal nowadays. Although that is a short-term contract, comes to an end 2 years' time. So we are going to have to do something in this committee on what we need to do with that harbour in the future, which we'll bring back at a later stage. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on that. It's relatively straightforward, I hope. But when you do have a chance to get your glasses, if you want to come back and ask us any questions after the meeting, you're more than happy to receive those.
Councillor Love?
I think the thing is as long as we're breaking even but I mean, it's nice to make profit, but as long as we break even, that has to be the goal at this point. And then I think next year our goal is to try and make money next year in a bigger way if we can. But thanks for that anyway.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we've had a number of years, I think probably 10 years, where we've had a lot of outstanding expenditure, obviously to achieve the Port Marine Safety Code and to try and tidy the harbour up, which Jonathan Lawrence and others have been working very hard on, and which you commented on last time. But I think we are beginning to move beyond some of that heavy items of expenditure now, hopefully. The last big bit of expenditure is the harbour walls. That will probably be referenced a bit later, where the work's due to take place sometime in the autumn on that. So it's the last big capital spend. So quite a lot of money has been spent on the harbour. But you're right, we do need to start thinking about the returns that we get on the harbour more generally. But no, thank you for that.
Councillor Luciani?
Another question, because I'm new to this committee and I realise there's some training on safety, etc. Would it be possible to have a visit so I can actually have a look around? Because I'm not really familiar with it particularly.
Yeah, as part of the we have our annual visit over Christmas. We've got a new designated person this year, and as part of we plan to try and arrange some training sessions with everybody again to go through the responsibilities of members of the board on what they need to do, and also to meet the new designated person. So we will do that, and part of that, John, we did a trip right down the river and back, which we probably might want to wait till, well, I don't know, it might be getting a bit cold and wet. That's the only thing. We need to plan it properly.
Yeah, I think if I can just say, I've been on a couple of those sort of tours of what's classed as Newport Harbour, really, because I think it gives members a good understanding of how far the harbour goes, what elements the Isle of Wight Council own and influence or can influence, and some of the other more complicated things such as perhaps Island Harbour and the following things like that. So I think it'd be well worth if members can maybe make the time to come along to that, and you could someone could take us up the river again. I think it's gives a real good understanding. If I could just say on Ventnor, I think it may, whether you wanted to do a 2-minute sort of explanation of where we've been, because obviously I think it's only Councillor Redrup that's been on the committee long enough to remember where we were with regards to the seaweed removal previously, because I think it might help, maybe even if you don't do it today, but another time, so maybe members could understand why we're doing it this way and what the advantages are of maybe continuing that, if we continue that, and if that is an option to continue doing it the way it is. Because if I remember before, it was a really sort of, let's call it messy situation, wasn't it, really, and cost more money.
I can give you a kind of potted history, and Lawrence can probably
Thank you, Alan.
can chip in if I get it wrong. But I mean, when we first took on the marina, which was, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, something like that, there was a management contract with Cheetah Marine at the time, and they not only managed the harbour, they disposed of the seaweed. They did that with like a centrifugal pump that was in the centre of the harbour, but it was fixed on a boat, wasn't it, that could move around. That sucked up the seaweed, macerated it, and pushed it over the wall. What first transpired was that we didn't have a license to do that, although it had been something that had been in practice for a long, long time. We didn't have a license, so we set about obtaining a license to do that. When Cheetah Marine ceased managing the harbour and ceased managing that operation, and we ran it for a small period of time, but it was a very small period of time, and it was quite a costly way of doing it. When we then tendered the harbour more recently, and Blake's Fisheries took on the contract, sorry, Ventnor Haven Management, different part of the company, took on the management of that, they introduced a slightly different way of doing it. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? It's a similar way to do it, but it's cheap. It has proved to be cheaper.
I think also at the time, I think we were paying around £140,000 a year for the previous method of keeping the harbour clear. We put it went out to tender for a 5-year contract, of which we're now into the 3rd year at a substantially less amount as to what we were paying then. The Ventnor Haven Management Company used the same principle, but slightly different. They have their pump and pipe attached to the end of the fisheries pontoon, and it can be run at any point, and it does exactly the same thing again. It's created a sump in the harbour basin where the seaweed sort of migrates to, which then sucks it up, as Alex says, macerates it, and then throws it over the harbour wall. We have a current 10-year licence in place for that process, which expires next March, and we're just in the process now of trying to get a new 10-year licence to be able to continue with the current process. It's probably a quick history.
Thank you, Lawrence. Councillor Redrup.
Just for the help of Karen, as Councillor Karen, you missed out a little bit where we did try and get European funding to organically remove. And I remember that was my first meeting on this committee, where the gentlemen in question were laughing because we just left Europe, didn't we? So we weren't going to get any funding. But we was told quite nicely that Scotland had the right seaweed, but the Isle of Wight didn't. That was quite early on as well.
Thank you, Ray. Any other questions on Ventnor? No? Thank you. So, well, thank you for that. We'll move on to number 6, which is reports of the harbour, senior harbour master, sorry, to note reports for both Newport and Ventnor. Jonathan.
Afternoon all. The quarterly report is only up to the 22nd of August, because I'm afraid I took some leave, so I'm afraid it doesn't quite make it to the end of August. Our visitors numbers are doing well. I've got to the end of August now, and we took 340 boats as short stays or overnights in August, which means that we've taken 1,400 boats, either short stays or overnights this year. The Isle of Wight Festival took place, and it did increase our numbers for that period, and the pre-booking, which was the second year that we've done it, has worked very well, and allowed us to have a lot of boats in a semi-organised fashion. Moving on, as I said, events, we had the Isle of Wight Festival. We've had 4 visiting boat rallies. The Carnival has used the harbour as a dispersal site after it, which makes it a lot easier than trying to do it in Quay Street. For inspections of navigations, aids, everything's been all right. 2 channel markers have had maintenance work, and one of them's been swapped over, freshly painted by harbour staff. As for the channel of the harbour, that was surveyed in the middle of August. So we now have up-to-date depths, and that is also done on the difference of our original survey in 2017, so we can see whether it's gained or fallen away. But that looks reasonable. The last of the power washing of the folly pontoons was done in June, and we had a couple of boards to replace where they've buckled in the heat, but everything else is all good. Obviously, with water standpipes and stuff, we do have the hose pipe ban, which means that boats can fill up water tanks, but they can't wash them down anymore. But most people are fully aware of that. Slipways, the harbour staff have done very well, that they've all been kept clear and reasonably seaweed clear, but obviously with the nice sunny days, seaweed does like sun, so I've had a bit of a challenge with them. Incidents, you've probably heard that the Ride Queen managed to catch fire. It's outside of our jurisdiction, but it is something that was that took place, but there was no pollution into our jurisdiction. Other things that happened, there was a couple of incidents during the Isle of Wight Festival, but nothing major. Someone trying to walk across the river with his dog to get in and had to have some help getting out. There was someone fell off a pontoon at Newport Rowing Club, but seemed to be okay, but wasn't properly supervised by his guardians at the time, it seemed. The other one is that 2 of our historic houseboats have been removed and demolished. One of them, sadly, because it sank and couldn't be refloated, and the other one was that he could no longer get it insured, so it got removed, and they were removed and disposed of at the owner's costs. So, which is good, and they've both moved ashore, and they seem to be enjoying not bobbing up and down with the tide. Other than that, we seem to have done very well at Newport. It sort of seemed busy, and touch wood, everything going to plan. Any questions?
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Redbrook first.
Thank you. Just a question on the depth. Has that decreased, or is that more or less the same?
More or less the same. There's a couple of bumps here and there. But that will be forward to the other sort of all the charts, suppliers and stuff, so they will have the updated depth.
Okay.
I only got them yesterday, so I haven't had a full look through, but in general, it's about the same.
So normal sort of depth supply for people like me. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Love.
Thank you. I've got just a few quick questions really, just for, I'm assuming that when the boats come in for the festival, some of them are all rafted together down the river, aren't they? They're all charged, are they? And that the safety boat, it says putting out an additional safety boat. I'm assuming is that paid for by the festival?
So the boats that are rafted on the pontoons, some of them are pre-booked, and we take bookings of a minimum of three boats. So they're usually their friends, or at least they know them. Makes it a lot easier. So when someone's got very heavy feet at the end of the night, it's only their friends that they're disturbing, which makes it a lot easier. Boats that are anchored, that are rafted, and they're anchored fore and aft,
Yeah,
they pay the harbour to be there overnight. The additional safety boats that we get from Folly, it's actually there to keep the river clear and the channel clear and be on hand, but it does keep an eye on the general people in the river. That is paid for by the Isle of Wight Festival. The Isle of Wight Festival also supply a fire and recovery vessel
I've seen that.
additionally to that. So we do actually have 2 extra boats. And for the festival this year, we actually had the police rib was stationed a lot of the time at the Folly, and also Cowes Harbour keep an eye at the Folly as well. So for that 5 days, we do have a lot of additional, not all of our staff, but we can call on them, which is really useful.
I think that my question's about making sure that we're covering our costs and stuff there. The other thing that I'm just asking because I don't know the answer. Obviously, we have the big classic cars which happen this weekend. Are we taking a fee for that or not? And might it be appropriate for us to run a classic boat event at the same time to attract in more business to the marina? Just a question.
So the harbour is part of the amenity land hire setup. So for the events on the whole council lands, so there is a fee for the use of the harbour. Same as Riverfest, Classic Car Museum. We had Go Electric as well, and a couple of other events. So there is a fee that they pay for the use of the harbour, and they also supply the barriers and everything else that's needed. There has been talk of clubs organising, so to come down during it, but it would be very difficult for the harbour to organise them. Sort of if clubs or owners groups, a bit like we had the Westerly Rally came down and it was organised by the owners club, we would welcome them, but I think for us to try and organise it would be not straightforward, because if you're just doing it as an open invite, A, it's getting them to confirm, B, them turning up for the weather, and then you may end up with shrimpers that are 19 feet and 45-foot powerboats. They don't raft very easily. So if clubs would like to come, we would fully welcome them, but I think organised by the harbour would cause problems.
I mean, the reason I ask is it's just about maximising the resource. If there's a classic car event there, for me, it seems logical to encourage or to invite. I'm not saying that we have to, for that weekend, the classic boats to try and those that are capable through their clubs. I'm not saying because we need to maximise that. And it just seems to me that there were clearly a couple of boats there that we can come for the cars, perhaps, to encourage that to bring in more revenue is what I was thinking about. For that, that's the only thing that I was kind of wondering about it. And the other thing that I kind of wonder about, and it's perhaps not for this meeting, but it seems logical to me that we kind of make it so the car park could be, and I don't know how this all works, adjusted for trailer and not caravans, but motorhomes. And I'm wondering whether there's some merit there if we've already got the electric there to encourage as a motorhome stop, because we've got all the facilities there for it in terms of toilet, showers, etc. Have a couple of bays where they can pull in, plug in and pay, which also helps the tourism of Newport as well. Just wondering if there might be any merit in that moving forward in that space, depending on what happens with the development of. It's just a thought, really. Just maximising our spaces.
A very valid point. In fact, we were only talking about it yesterday. about whether we thought we could use the harbour for that purpose. So we met with all the harbour staff yesterday to talk about the Harbour Walls project. But we then had a further discussion. In fact, Jonathan brought it up about whether we could do exactly what you suggest. I think the view at the minute is we haven't really reached a conclusion. It would bring it, there is a demand for it. We know that certainly from my previous management of our own car park services. I think there is a demand for motorhomes, positions for motorhomes. The only thing that I think we're struggling with is there is a downside to that as well, because it has and has in the past brought us a lot of people that we don't want and then struggle to get rid of. So it would need to be, if we were going to do it, it would need to be managed very, very carefully. We've had a lot of problems down on that harbour, as people, members will know or may not know, with motorhomes down there that we don't want down there, staying for long periods of time and causing all sorts of unsocial and problematic issues with the harbour. So I think we've got to be a little bit mindful of that, because it puts incredible pressure on the staff dealing with those types of people. If we could make sure that they were all, the kind of people that probably visit our local caravan parks, etc., then I think it'd be fine if we could contain it in that way. But it is difficult.
Yeah, so I like the fact that you've thought about it, because for me it seems logical to do that. And my thought pattern is by having people there that are there, is that detracts any antisocial behaviour, because there are eyes on and it's a used space. I think when it's an unused space, that attracts people in, as we've, into to do whatever they want, whatever they get up to and all the rest of it. But I just think that there's an opportunity there with some clever management, like 5-day, by imposing some rules, if they can be legally enforced, that you have a 1 week maximum stay, paid in advance. Everything else is, lined up, and where they go and where they can't go. Anything else is seen as you must move on. I think that could be, because I think you're right. I've noticed, I live opposite a caravan park, and they're predominantly being used now by mobile homes. That's where the money is in there. People have moved to mobile. Caravans are still welcome, but less welcome. I'm not suggesting that we have caravans, because caravans tend to set up, don't they, and want grass. But for those 2 or 3 overnighters visiting Newport with the facilities that we've got, it's worth having a closer look at that, and to see if there's even if we just test it for 3 or 4 areas. Yeah, I think it's just worth its income, isn't it? It's just, and that shouldn't be really, from my perspective, the responsibility of the harbour staff. I think that's an enforcement from highways issue. But I don't know how it works in the marina in terms of what bits are what. But there's certainly that car park, which is empty for 90% of the time, isn't there? But then we've got the hookups on the side of the river, near to the berths, that where you could put 3 or 4 vehicles for a 3-night, with a nice little area at the back, 3 or 4 feet, where they can sit on the riverside and look at the boats. I think that could be attractive to some people, and it would bring in a little bit of money.
I don't think we disagree with that at all. I think it's a conversation we're having yesterday, and we have had a conversation with the car park team as well, about whether it could be enforced as we do with our car parks, and it potentially could be. I'd say I think our only kind of slight concern is about whether we can have that kind of level of enforcement that you talk about, because I'm not sure we can. But from an income point of view, I think all of us would agree it's the right thing to do. There's certainly the demand for it.
Thank you. So I think Karen was before you. Councillor Luciani.
Just going on from that point, really, I was going to talk about, because you've got here the tents that were removed. Do we have a bit of an issue down there?
There is, or there has been, a fair few people living. There's a couple of charities that will supply tents, sleeping bags, to people that request them. They tend to be only for a week or so. And the environment officers, the environment officers, we keep them informed and they work with us. They tend to be only there for a week or so, and then once we know they're abandoned, we store them and then dispose of them. There's been a slight worry with some of them that have been using disposable barbecues when it's so warm. And there is the additional rubbish that they tend to produce, sadly. So we keep an eye on them and we share the information with environment officers. But a lot of the time they tend to move on.
Can I just follow on from that? That's all along the river though. It's not in the particular, in the harbour vicinity or not.
Yeah, all along. There's a couple of sort of places that they favour, but it is both sides of the river all the way down.
So I mean, the compassionate side of me now says, if we've got that kind of event occurring, and I know that Isle of Wight Council do give out tents, because we know that they have done, then if we're going to give out tents, there is a duty of care and responsibility. This is a bigger issue than this, by the way, on us as a council to at least advise a safe area for them to be placed. Now that then enters into all kinds of issues, doesn't it?
I'm a landlord then.
Yeah, yeah. But if that is occurring because it's a place that people want to be, is it not better for us to have that in some kind of controlled area? Now, that's probably a bigger debate than what we're talking about here. That if we are giving out tents as a council and charities are giving out tents and people are saying, I don't know that they're doing this, and by the way, there's a whole river frontage there to go to, might it be wise for us to have a controlled area where people who can go, that we can control in some way? I know I'm on difficult land, but I'm just trying to bring some rationale to it. There are people living in poverty, not for their own, and we've got to be compassionate. Is there something we can think about moving forward that addresses that?
I think you're right. I don't think it's a council issue. We would signpost people back to housing, that type of thing. We have over the years had a history of problematic characters being all over the harbour. We have been quite robust in the removal of those people with help. So yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I don't really think it's a harbour problem not to take on, a harbour problem to own, to house that type of activity.
I'm not suggesting it is for the harbour specifically, but what I am thinking is that if there's a natural place, and you will know those places, I'm going to discuss them here, where people gravitate to, where we know people are perhaps out of harm's way, where there are some difficulties with some characters. If we were to specify that as a place where people could go, we are at least having some kind of control or support.
I think if I can just cut in on that, I think when it comes to homelessness, I don't think it's for this committee to go too deep into it, but the east side of the river is my ward. And Lawrence is right that we've had a history of some problematic issues there. I think there's I think everyone will agree we've got quite a good provision for helping anyone that would be homeless on the island. We've got a number of agencies that deal with that. There are a number of places where if their only option is a tent, which I don't think the Isle of Wight Council give out tents. I think it's one of the other agencies do it. I think it's the Salvation Army and possibly via Two Saints and organisations like that. But I think obviously an area like Sea Close Park, for instance, which is where we're actually seeing some of them, isn't it? And along the back of the cemetery, they're problematic areas for that kind of issue. You've got children walking to school along there. It isn't the place for us to allow that, that's for certain. I'm not saying there couldn't be a place to allow it, but I think that is outside of the harbour committee and the harbour estates role to do that. But there's been quite a long history right back to the start of this committee with I know Jonathan particularly had people there are people on your case all the time, Jonathan, wasn't there? I had a lot of it. You know, I had a certain gentleman that turned up at my garage every single day, and would stay there for hours. And actually, in the end, we actually had a good outcome on that, didn't we? And he was able to move on somewhere else. But it was as soon as he was given an inch, he took a mile, and that's something we've got to resist, I'm afraid, when it comes to the harbour. Otherwise, you do end up stuck with vehicles, vessels, and other
I
things.
mean, I wasn't suggesting that it would be in that particular location. I'm just saying is that if it's a natural place, what else can we do to try and find solutions? That's basically how.
Beyond that, I mean, if I say I know the environment officers do patrol that area, don't they? And I know they're very good at signposting people. I mean, Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council fund the Newport Environment Officer, or partly fund the Newport Environment Officer. And I know that many of us have engaged with the environment officers to make sure that those people are spoken to and helped, not just moved on. You know, try to connect them to the right sort of agency, or get them somewhere where they can be safe and looked after. Thank you. Did anyone else have anything to add?
Going back to your point, it must be working like that. If they're only staying 1 or 2 weeks, then the signposting and the help must be working.
It sort of works. It's not a perfect scenario, but it sort of works, you know. Councillor Redruth?
I just forgot what I was going to say, but going back to Alex and Carl's initial talk about motorhomes, I do have a motorhome, and it works quite successfully abroad. They're called airs, I believe, where the councils do run their 2 to 3 stop days maximum. And it is quite basic. You don't have room to stick your side awnings up or anything. It's just literally a quick stop over and go. And if we went into it with that sort of attitude, I think, like Alex says, it's quite a good form of income for the Harbour estate to use. And if it is for such a short space, you're not going to attract the people that will try and stay there for longer. It would attract motorhomes that are just coming to go in to see Newport's wonderful shops. And but so yes. Oh, it could be, yes. But I like that idea, is what I'm saying. But so long as, like Alex said, it's got to be managed properly. And I think a week is too long. 2 or 3 nights maximum to make sure people move on as well.
Thank you. Councillor Luciani?
Just going back to, I'm really impressed that you could say my name. Well done. I wasn't Luciani then, though. No. Going back to like the barbecues, which is obviously quite a worry. Members here, remember there's a consultation happening about single-use barbecues on council land, and I think in this case is probably one of a good example of that would work really well if they were banned there, so you can enforce it better.
Thank you. No other questions on that item? So we'll move on to number 7, which is the Newport and Ventnor Harbour Safety Management. Oh, sorry. Sorry, the Ventnor Harbour report. Sorry, do apologise, Jonathan.
Yeah, so Ventnor's nice and easy. The sort of main thing that's showing is that we're beginning to get visitors and short stays at Ventnor. Their numbers are not huge, but usually they're 0. So people are beginning to stay overnight, and short stays are popping in. So it does prove that people have remembered it's there now, which is great. They tend to be small ribs and stuff, but they are using it, which is great. Their permanent berths, they've now got up to 7, which is 2 more than usually used to fit in. So they're doing really well, and they're fully occupied. And the seaweed removal, for the 3 months, they've done 202 hours, which is keeping it under control. And it does prove that it has been needed during the summer, but they haven't had to run it 24 hours a day. So it seems to be coping very well. So yeah, and other than that, it seems to be going okay, but it's always a lot easier when it's sunny. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
Any questions on Ventnor? Thank you, Jonathan. So we'll move on to number 7, which is the Newport and Ventnor Harbour Safety Management Plan.
I'll cover that for you. And the Harbour's safety management plan forms part of the suite of documents we've got for the harbour. There's a list towards the back of it of bits that we are working on and bits that we aspirations and bits like that we would like to work on. What we've done with this document is the bits in yellow are the bits that there's an update to. Number 16. Oh, sorry, yeah, you might have it back and white. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. They're in grey. As part of the Port Marine Safety Code, we have an obligation to liaise with and notify facilities within the harbour estate. And we have a contact process and information that we've sent to all. We've highlighted all of the facilities within the harbour estate, and we've written to them all with some documents with regard to their responsibilities and our responsibilities. It's part of the Port Marine Safety Code and what we'll get audited on. So it's just an update for that. Jonathan already covered off 20, which was the hydrographic survey, which we just had done and just had the results back. And the final one on there was the bit that I mentioned previously with regard to Ventnor, that we're part way through an application for a disposal license for the seaweed at Ventnor, which is it's quite a lot of work with regards to, and quite complicated with anything to do with the MMO, with the application process. Fingers crossed we're quite early. It expires next, I think, middle of March next year. So we've got quite a while, and we started the process 3 months ago. So we just got some additional reports that we need to get commissioned, and hopefully we'll be able to get that through. Yeah.
Thank you, Lawrence. Councillor Love.
What's the backup plan? Trust, if they say no. What happens
We
then?
do have, I don't think they'll say no, because we've had one for 10 years anyway, and the application went through before, and the conversations that we've had with the MMO now, they've asked for a specific report to be provided to them, which once they've got that, I think they'll probably review the application and give us a yes or no. The only option, if we didn't have that, would be to mechanically dredge with plant. Now, the way the harbour works at Ventnor is that we have permission to use mechanical means to remove seaweed and sand from the harbour, but we haven't got permission to dispose of it. So what we've done this year is we did a mechanical dredge there this year, and we disposed of it at Monk's Bay above the high water mark. So it can then be dispersed on the sand. So there is the option to do that again, hopefully, but obviously we'd have to have conversations with the beaches team. Yeah, the cost was, it came close to £15,000 for that bit of work to be done because of the transport costs.
Ride Marina is in my ward. It's very expensive.
Yeah. But theirs is a little bit easier in the fact that they can deposit out off of Ride Arena in a certain way, but we've got permission. Yeah, we've got permission to dredge or to maintenance dredge, but we haven't got permission to dispose. Whereas theirs is a dredge and dispose license.
That's the wrong kind of seaweed as well.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on that report? No. I mean, I'll just comment that again. I know I've said this many, many times, but you just look back at where we started with this, and you now, when you look at this, and we're completely complying with nearly everything, aren't we? And at the beginning, when Jonathan started, I mean, it was it looked like it would never be finished, didn't it? And you know, real testament to the work of all of the officers and the other staff, and the harbour staff particularly, to get us to this point. So thank you. Well done to everyone. So we will move on to number 8, which is the Southern Water update. It's to receive a verbal update relating to Southern Water, which I think is from yourself, Alex, isn't it?
Yeah, this has come up a number of times at Harbour Committee. And I think not all of you will have known the history behind this. But we did have a presentation from Southern Water back in March 2023. So I think before we do anything, I think it'll be useful for members to, I think in terms of the agenda, I looked at it this morning, it's not written into the agenda. So you have to actually watch the meeting and look at the questions that members asked of Southern Water. It was Keith Herbert at the time and Neil Bell that did the presentation, did a very good presentation. And they did say that they would come back if we wanted them to in the future, which I think is what Councillor Love was requesting last time. I'm not sure that you were party to that original presentation that they had. So I think it would be beneficial to have a look at that presentation. So that's the 29th of March 2023. And I had a little look at it, you can watch it. And it was quite a detailed presentation from Southern Water. Yes, I think you were, yeah. But it was largely covering the discharge arrangements, which is what we were talking about, but was also looking at the issues around flooding as well. But it was mainly about the discharges. So I think it would be useful to look at that first and then decide if we are going to call them back, for what reason. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we don't want to go over the same thing again. The other thing that I think might be useful at that time, we were also looking around and got a supply, a map of exactly where the outfalls were. And there's 5 CSO outfalls within the Harbour area. Would you like me to redistribute that again to you? Okay. Okay. Done that. I think if you want them to come back, I'm not sure those 2 individuals will be the same people anymore, but we can ask for them to come back, but we just need to be clear about what we're asking them, because it was a very informative meeting, I felt, when we had it, and we asked a lot of questions, but it was very difficult for us as a Harbour authority or us as a group of officers to do much about what they were doing, because they were all licensed outfalls, other than possibly lobbying central government to look to change their legislation. But I'm not being difficult. I just need to make sure that we know we don't want to go over the same thing again.
Councillor Love?
Yeah, from my point of view, so I haven't seen the,
No, I didn't think you
so if we could send a link on to us so we can have a look at that. I think the important thing is that people get quite upset about discharges and things in terms of, so it would be perhaps, I don't know if this exists or not, somebody must know what the discharge rates were previously up to that point, and what has then happened and occurred since that time would be useful to know for the harbour, because we are responsible for the harbour's environment and its ecology and all the rest of it. So it would be useful to know, because also there's a great public interest in. I think Keith Herbert's gone, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Still there, he's doing something else.
Yeah, different role. I think in the past they have given us the detail, that kind of level of detail. So that would be something we could request again.
I would like to see that again. I'd like to see that data to see whether if we're increasing or decreasing, and hopefully that's decreasing, because it has an impact for us as a council on the ecology of the river, for which we're responsible for.
Sorry, just quickly before I take any more questions, I think with regards to Southern Water, if we were going to invite them back, I think it would be a good idea to have a maybe a set of questions that they can be prepared for, or issues highlighted to them. And I totally agree with what Councillor Love said with regards to the potential sewage outfall into the river. But obviously, I think it would be absolutely relevant not to do that until we're in the next council, because obviously there's not long left of this council unless the elections get cancelled again. But assuming they don't, then up next year this committee could look completely different again then. So yeah. Councillor Lucioni.
I was just wondering, with flooding, so the Environment Committee actually has a statutory part with flooding. So again, some of those questions could come to that and be asked from members as well through that, which they have to answer because it's statutory through that one. That may help. You could look to doing something there as well.
I'm happy either way. I just think that we're talking specifically about the harbour, and that anything in my view that has a direct impact on the harbour facilities, the quality of the water, the river for which we are responsible for at this end of the, we should be able to try and get some access for. But I would like to know whether if we're making any improvements from them on discharge. And I don't know what the position was before, bearing in mind, but I just think that if we've got markers and indicators from the past, even if we haven't, we should start a marker and indicator now moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, on the back of that, I wonder if that's something we could maybe ask them to provide us a report specifically to this committee. I know it might be information that they won't like to publish as such, but if, you know, is there a route to getting what we need, you know, specifically related to the harbour?
I think we could. I think they'd probably prefer to come along and present it because it's contextual, isn't it? So I know they were talking a lot about what they were going to do to try and reduce the number of instances of obviously release, but obviously that is very, very dependent on the weather conditions. So comparing one year to another isn't necessarily the right way to do it, because obviously if we had a lot of rainfall, which we certainly have over the last couple of weeks, then obviously that's when the sewage system is most under pressure. But it would be useful to find out what measures they put in place to try and reduce the number of emissions.
Councillor Redborough?
If my memory serves me correctly, when they come last time, they was talking about more plants going on Fairley Road, wasn't it? So in that alone, I'd be quite interested to see how that has impacted, if that's reduced unauthorised spillages into the River Medina. It was quite useful information, if my memory serves me correctly, not just with the river, but other areas of the island, in what they was asking us as the public and councils to do with water butts and things. It was a big issue in back then regarding Southern Water and fines and things, wasn't it? So like Matt says, I think, and yourself, we need to have set questions ready. So maybe we have a pre-meeting to find out what it is we want to ask them and discuss before we actually invite them in. That'd be a good.
Alex, yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good idea. I think probably watch the video, watch the link, look at what they said last time, because not everybody's had an access to that. I do think might be kind of covering the same point as Karen. I do think what we should focus on is the specifics around the harbour here, and we shouldn't. The bigger picture stuff probably should go through Karen's committee, which is the right place for it, I think.
Yeah.
If my memory serves me right, I think the bigger question through the committee that I run would be, I think the legislation dictates that they have to only make like 10 discharges by 2030. So the question is, what are they doing to hit that target? I think that's the bigger question, actually. What have they done now, and what are they doing going forward to actually hit that target? So that's what they have to do.
Thank you. Anything else on the Southern Water update? No? Thank you. So we're on to agenda item number 9, which is members' question time. Any members' questions? No? No. Sorry? Sorry, Councillor Redborough.
Are you going to make your meeting in time? Pick up the kids, sorry.
We're doing fine.
We're doing
Thank you.
fine. Okay, that's the main thing.
I was just going to, it was only just on the back of actually the Harbour Master's, the Senior Harbour Master's report, is that obviously it's comments rather than questions really. I thought I'd just mention these things that I think the harbour is being used more for events now, which is really good to see. It really, when you attract people down to the end of the town, it benefits the retail of the lower part of Newport town centre. It would be lovely to almost, probably Jonathan, be fearful of me saying this, but if we had an event like that every weekend, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it? You'd be proper stressed then, I expect. But but also I think the festival. I'm a big supporter of the festival. I'd like to think that some of the reasons that I've when I got re-elected was I've always been a big supporter of the festival and the good things it brings. It brings a lot of inconvenience to my residents, who I work hard with to try and do the best I can to help them through that period when things occur and go wrong. But I think the extra security on the harbour and all the other things they do, such as the what we were talking about the other sort of safety implications that they pay for. It was really to highlight that the Isle of Wight Festival do actually pay for a lot more than anyone really sees, don't they? That's what it comes down to. I think people perceive that the Isle of Wight Council pay for it all, and actually it is the festival organiser that pay for all these things, isn't it? The only other thing I was going to say, which is sort of, well, actually probably to all three of you, is about the harbour toilets, which it's brilliant because they're being used for events now. If I know that Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council helped get them open last time. If there is something that needs doing, or you think that there's something else that the Community Council could help with, we will be doing our budget preparations sort of next month. So if there is anything, if you could either come to me or Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, either of us can sort of maybe help put that forward to the Community Council if there is something. Because what we want to do is try and keep the toilets as up together as we can before any further regeneration happens, and hopefully keep them open for events. Thank you. If there's nothing further, I'll close this meeting. Thank you very much.